guys, welcome back to another Surgical Tech Tips. As you can see from the headlines that you just saw, this video is all about a surgical tech's worst nightmare. It's a retained foreign body. It's leaving a sponge, an instrument, a needle, something like that in a patient. Something goes awry, a count is wrong, or maybe the nurse and tech thought they had counted something right, but something was still missing. Let's talk about this. So first things first, I want to run through the definition of a retained surgical item or an instrument or an RSI. It's an item that's inadvertently left behind in a patient's body during the course of surgery. As a preventable medical error, it occurs more frequently than wrong site surgery. There's hundreds of instruments that we use in every single, in all these cases in surgery. The more complicated and the more urgent the surgery is, the higher likelihood that an item will be left behind. Those are emergency surgeries, those are the trauma cases, stuff like that. Now let's really try and break down how miscounts can happen and kind of why it happens. So breaking down a miscount, there are many ways that it can happen, but probably some of the most common ways a miscount can happen relate to things either being added during a case and not recorded, miscounts happening while reliefs are happening, you know, surgical techs going on break, or nurses breaking each other during a case, stuff like that. Initial count. The initial count is so important to get 100% correct. And one way a miscount can happen later on in the surgery is that the initial count was off. If you don't count it right the first time, it's going to be wrong the second time. Dropped items during a case, that happens all the time. Needles are dropped, you know, instruments are dropped, it happens. And everything that's dropped off of the field has got to be recorded. And if it is dropped, the person that has dropped it or has noticed that it's on the floor needs to announce to the room, hey, this Kelly clamp is on the floor, or hey, I just dropped a needle on the floor, somebody's got to find it. That type of stuff. Now hypothetically, let's say we had an initial count off and we come up to our final count and we're missing one needle. We can't figure out why. You know, the surgical tech on the sterile field has all of their needle packs and, you know, everything seems in order, and they're 100% sure that they've gotten everything back from the surgeon or the assistant.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Whenever there's a doubt in the count, we always have to call X-ray, and they come up with their portable and they do a 2-view X-ray, transverse and anterior posterior over the incision site, just to make sure. You have to do that every single time there's a miscount, every single time. And lastly, kind of related to X-ray, are emergent situations and emergency cases. We don't always have the luxury of time in emergency cases. We need to go, 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 go. So something like counting an entire tray of instruments is just not going to happen. So in those types of situations, standard across the board, again, it's an X-ray at the end of the case to ensure that there's nothing left in the patient. So what happens when the count is correct between the nurse and the tech, but there's still a retained foreign body in that patient? How is it found out that that patient has a retained foreign body? Well, usually patients, they can show signs of possibly like sepsis, a lot of pain and discomfort in their surgical site. I mean, they're still going to have pain and discomfort in their surgical site as it is, but just an abnormal amount of pain and discomfort. There's a lot of surgeries that, you know, can get post-op x-rays and stuff like that. And if they do end up getting a post-op x-ray, they can see that there's actually a retained foreign body in there. So what happens next? We find out that there's a retained foreign body. All of our counts were correct. but there's a retained foreign body inside this patient. Contact the surgeon. The surgeon contacts the OR staff, makes sure they start getting a room ready because they will be taking this patient back immediately. The surgeon will go and talk to the patient, talk to the patient's family, notify them of what has been found and what happened. Not a good situation. All of the OR risk managers and OR management find out about it as well, so they're all notified. And as soon as that room is ready and they wheel that patient in there, there will be no staffing changes whatsoever during that entire procedure of getting rid of that retained foreign body. Nobody's allowed to take a break. You go in there, you open up the incision, you find out where the retained foreign body is, and take it out. Do a clean sweep everywhere, everywhere. So how do you avoid a retained foreign body? All counts should be conducted the same way for every case and every team. Starting from the field, to the Mayo stand, to the back table, then items off the sterile field. Sponges, sharps, miscellaneous items, and then instruments. Additional counts should always be performed when you open or close the retroperitoneum. Any bilateral procedures, multiple stage operations, separate counts for each stage, kind of like an Ivor Lewis. And also, if any member of the surgical team feels like another count should be done, if they're just worried about something, just do it. So when do you do a count? All counts should be performed before the procedure to establish your baseline, before closure of a cavity within a cavity, before wound closure begins, and at the skin closure or at the end of the procedure. At the time of any permanent relief, like a shift change or a handoff of a circulating nurse and a scrub, there should always be a shift change count to ensure that everything is on par. Lastly, it's always the responsibility of the surgeon, first assist, or scrub tech, anybody that's standing at the sterile field. It's your job to ensure that the circulating nurse knows when an item has been packed into an abdomen or into a cavity inside the body. Majority of the time it's like laps into an abdomen or laps into a chest or something like that. But nurses need to know that there is an item being packed into a cavity inside the body. Most of the time they write it down on their count sheets or on their boards to ensure that they know, and they always remember. When they come back to do the count, they will see it right there on their count sheet. 1 lap in the abdomen, 2 laps in the abdomen. You gotta let them know. Now, thankfully, this is not something that we run into often. It's never happened to me. I've had miscounts happen during surgery. I've had dropped needles happen. Initial counts go wrong and stuff like that. But these are things that we recognize at the end of the procedure, and we have x-ray come in, shoot an x-ray. I've had that happen to me. I have not, thank God, I have not had a retained foreign body inside of a patient before. But you know, you have to recognize something too, that it's not just like abdominal surgery or you know, big surgeries. You know, it could be something as simple as an inguinal hernia. It could be something as simple as, you know, a throat packing that was left in a patient, or a vaginal packing that was left inside of a patient. It's not just big surgeries. You have to be on your A game all the time. Now here's a short list of some countable items. This is just a common list of countable items. There's a multitude of different items that can be counted in a surgical procedure. It just depends on the procedure itself. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this little video on one of the scariest situations that you can run into as a tech. And hopefully, I really hope nobody has had to deal with it. I'm sure there's a lot of legal matters involved when it does happen. and people get suspended and things like that. I know I've seen it happen before, and it sucks. You know, good techs that are human and they just make, you know, one minor mistake, or good techs and nurses. And you know, you see them get suspended for a couple weeks pending an investigation, and you know, your risk management and OR managers have to go through all of this legal mumbo jumbo to talk through the situation and sentinel event. Yeah, it's not a good situation to be in, and I hope that I will never have to be in it, and I hope none of you will ever have to be a party to any of these types of situations either. It's a nightmare, absolute nightmare. But yeah, thanks for watching. Appreciate the viewing, and I will see you again in the next video. Please let me know down in the comments below, have you ever seen or heard of this happening? Let me know. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.